I might be jumping off this 70-foot jump, and there's a chance that the landing is gonna avalanche. Like that is the risk I'm taking up there on top of the looking at this jump. And it's like, okay, like I think I know what I'm doing. This might be it. Like if I don't do something like drastic, my career could be over. That taught me, like, whenever you think it's like you kind of push up to that threshold, you still have ability to, like, okay, I know I can take it to the next level.
Hello, I'm Yvette Jeal. I'm an executive coach, and I'm delighted to be joined here today by ex-Olympic snowboarder Jussi Oksanen. And we're going to be digging into how a growth mindset can help all of us in our careers. Welcome, Jussi. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's
Here
cool.
it goes. Jussi is an ex-professional snowboarder, entrepreneur, and now leading sports photographer. His snowboarding career spans 17 years. He was 7 times X Games medalist and competed for Finland in the Olympics. After recognizing what was happening firsthand with the planet, he founded his own company, Mizu, selling stainless steel water bottles to help battle the problem of single-use plastic. This is now sold in over 26 countries. Not content with just helping to save the planet, he now wants to capture the planet in all its glory and has gone on to set up a career as a professional photographer for premium lifestyle and outdoor brands. So Jussi.
Wow, thank you.
So tell me, how did you manage to stay at the top of your game for 17 years? That's an incredible achievement.
Well, yeah, so obviously it's like really hard to break in the first place. And I think, like, once you get in, it's like to sustain that. So like, how do you like keep motivating yourself and reinvent yourself and finding these like micro big goals? I mean, there's a lot of things that comes to the plate, because, end of the day, it gets pretty repetitive. You go to same places and things like that. So it's just thinking like different things, how to like keep yourself fresh. And action sports too, like we're basically marketing tools for these brands. So you kind of need to look at yourself as a brand. So how do you reinvent yourself and keep things fresh? And without really thinking that, it's sort of like you just kind of end up doing it. And if you don't, you kind of see how riders come and go,
Yeah.
So I think
A
that
lot
just,
in professional sports, don't you? People coming and going. So like 17 years is a really long time to be able to keep that up.
yeah. And it's a balance of, like, obviously physical as well as mental. And if I look at my career, like, I definitely had a lot of highs and lows.
Right.
And then you look at, like, how do you bounce back from those lows? So there's like couple lows that, like, something triggered you, that it's like, okay, like, now I need to change everything completely. And then you grab onto those, and then now kind of, lift your motivation and get yourself back on the track. And yeah, in the course of like 17 years, I probably had like two or three low eras.
When you have your lows, is that like where you have to build your resilience to get back up?
Yeah, yeah, you questioning a lot of things, like why I'm doing this, or you start getting signs of, like, okay, like this might be it. Like if I don't do something like drastic, my career could be over. And it could be like you coming from an injury, or things just get very stagnant, that like you're not looking forward to the next season because you've done that for like 2-3 years, the same thing. So then it's like, how do I sort of completely reinvent myself
Yeah.
in this situation to get me back on track to be on the top?
So it's all about being adaptable, adapting and agile.
Yeah, constantly adapting and sort of like checking yourself where you at. And it's funny because, like, in my career, like, I didn't really think of that as a brand, like I have to do this, but you just sort of like, you just kind of know that that's what you need to do to stay in the game.
Keeping your brand fresh, keeping
Yeah,
reinventing yourself. Amazing.
yeah, totally.
And not getting left behind, I guess.
Yeah.
How important were your team, the people around you? How did they contribute to your success?
The team is very important. For me, I was with Burton Snowboards for 15 years. So that's one of the biggest snowboard companies in the world. So the fact that I had that kind of support for product, but like travel for anything I needed professionally, that was taken care of. And then I had my agent who took care of all the business side of things. So I could be focusing snowboarding 100%.
Yeah.
But then in a team in snowboarding, what we did backcountry snowboarding. So we spent most of our days in Whistler or Alaska. And basically that crew was fundamental because your life depends on whoever you're with. I couldn't go out if I couldn't trust the person. So if somebody would come in our crew outside of our box, you kind of have to like, okay, have you done avalanche courses? Have you been in this situation? Are you fit enough? Are you like, can you fit in here? Because it's mentally and physically very demanding. So
Because I'd imagine you can't really relax to go and do these massive jumps or whatever it was you were doing if you didn't know that somebody had your back.
yeah, totally. Like I might be jumping off this 70-foot jump and there's a chance that the landing is going to avalanche. Like that is the risk I'm taking. So I know that if this happens, I know these guys going to get me out of there.
Yeah.
So and knowing like it just comes over time, that trust, you build that trust, and without that it wouldn't be sustainable.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's not exactly the same in business, but we're not going to die from an avalanche, but it's so important that the trust within a team to get that goal that you're all aiming for.
Yeah, and that someone's have your back. You might screw up or you might do this, but you know that you have the trust that like whatever happens, we're in it together. It's funny in that environment too, you learn that like if somebody is bringing on a certain attitude or there's like something like negative, like how that affects the whole crew dynamic, or it could totally switch a day from great day to bad day. So like those things are like, you kind of have to like call each other out, and it's like, hey, like now it's time to put yourself together. Like we're here, we have to stay on point, like kind of reset the situation. So
did you ever have your own trainer, your own coach, somebody that helped you sort of be at your optimum?
I had a personal coach for physical stuff. Had a lot of injuries and I got to a point that I really had to like take that up a notch. But my trainer was actually turned into a lot mental training as well, because he kind of pushed my abilities to like my threshold pretty much constantly. So there was never a time where like you just go train and just do your workout and be done. Like you'd be, as soon as you reached your threshold, he would push that threshold to the next level. It might be like you're doing kettlebells on a Swiss ball and now you need to close your eyes, and you might throw things at you and things like that. And it's like constantly like challenging you. And also I think that taught me like whenever you think it's like you kind of push up to that threshold, you still have ability to like, okay, I know I can take it to the next level. And
that is a really great mental thing to know, that you can always do better than you think you can.
Yeah, you can always push yourself so much more.
Yeah.
It's your natural like mind says, hey, this is enough, but like you have so much more capacity to go over that, and whether that's physical or mental. But yeah, it's just knowing those limits, I think it's very important.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to bring up a shot now on the screen here. This is you, I believe, on the front of a magazine. It's a perfect shot. You're in the air doing what is it? A front forward 540, you said? Or
I think that's front side 540.
oh, there you go, nearly. And what I'd like to know, for our viewers watching, what goes on behind the scenes in order to get this perfect shot, because they're probably looking, thinking, oh yeah, he's so talented, he just does that straight off the bat. But what goes in behind the scenes?
Yeah, so typical day, we would wake up 4:30, drive up to the trailhead, snowmobile up to the location, 3-4 hours, and then hike up to a place where we want to shoot, and then you build a jump, and then you got to hit the jump. And yeah, it's pretty funny, like, for as far as like the videos go, like if you would get one shot a day, like that would be amazing day.
And how many jumps would you have to do to get that shot?
Well, I mean, sometimes you fall like, 10 times in a row, like you're really just trying to get this one trick. So you're just falling, crashing, and then you just got to go back up. And I think it's just that determination for the task or the project we're working on. Like it's just, it just keeps you going. Like you're hungry and you want it. And as a crew, like we're all working on this one project, and we just want to get these shots and finish this video project, whatever that was. And so it's just
because for most of us, we'd be like, you're laying on the floor, you've been up since 4:30, you're freezing cold, maybe injured, we'd be wanting to go home for a cup of tea by now, and you're like, what gets you back up there? What gets you back up every time?
Well, I think it's like, that's your mission, right? Like that's what we're there for. And that's, first of all, that's what we love to do. And then
right,
we have a mission to do this, whatever the project is. And you're with people who wants to be there, they're on the same page, everybody's working hard for the same goal. And you just have a lot of like a sense of purpose. I think if you don't have that sense of purpose, it'd be very hard not to be that determined. But
yeah,
when you have that, it just all makes sense.
I think I'm hearing that you're doing what you love to do and the sense of purpose. So you don't mind the pain that goes along with it, the effort and the pain kind of works because you're doing what you love, and you've got a goal you're aiming for.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I have to ask you, because for a lot of people that across the board, fear of failure is a huge thing. Did you ever experience this yourself in your career?
For sure. I mean, there was few lows, but I think one of them was when, I think it was like early 30s. I was still sort of like top of my game in a way, but like I could feel like there was a whole new movement, like tricks coming. So a lot of it comes from the contest scene, and I was only doing the backcountry, like filming and that stuff. But the younger generation started doing, obviously pushing the tricks to the next level. So it was like the double 1080s, like double flip 1080s, and I knew that if I want to be relevant in this space, like I have to at least do this for my video parts. So just to kind of like, okay, I can do this. It's not necessarily something that I want to put my flag on, but it's just, like I need to, have this in my bag just to be that I'm a professional snowboarder.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge with that was just that when you do those types of tricks, like you can't do them on 30-foot jump. It has to be, like 50-60-foot jump where you're like 20-30 feet in the air. So, and these jumps that we build in the backcountry, nobody's ever hit them before. So you're up there on top of looking at this jump, and it's like, okay, like I think I know what I'm doing. And you just have to commit. And there was one season where I decided that I'm gonna film all the double flips. that season. And it was just like, that was it. Like I was going to do it no matter what. And every day we would go out film, and it's like, I'm just looking at, like, that's the only priority. It was like, okay, where can we find these jumps that we can film these double flips?
So you had your goal for the season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's really important. Like that was so fundamental for my success every year, that like you have whatever that goal was, even if it's like not a silly goal, but like that, like I'm doing these tricks, but that determines your whole year, because you planning, you're looking at those, and you're manifesting those situations. And I got what I set myself to do. And it's like every year you kind of have that. And if you don't have that, I had years when I didn't have goals, and it's, you sort of like, you're just spinning around, like you have no, So,
I love that. And it really does translate across to other people in all their careers. It's like having that goal, the goal of the season, then everything sort of, the opportunities arise, don't they? The opportunities transpire, they manifest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fantastic. Love that idea. So let's talk about when you came to the end of your snowboarding career, because that would be very challenging for a lot of athletes. And how did your mindset help you make that transition?
So I mean, it's obviously like very difficult for something that, like we talked about before, like that sort of sense of purpose, and something that you've done for a long time. So it was definitely in my mind for a long time, and I was lucky to start Mizu, our stainless steel water bottle company, 10 years prior when I retired. So I knew I had something to fall back. And I also knew that snowboarding and the risk we're taking, like you can be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. The risks are just way too great. And I started kind of wondering, like the last season, like I wasn't completely like in it anymore. And I knew that was like instantly was like, I'm out. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way. And I started, like, I had a few close calls, and it's like, okay, like I'm definitely like not, my head's not in it anymore. And so I knew that was the time. And and then I just made a move. It was that one season. I finished it. We filmed the video part, and then drove home, and it was done.
It was done.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what's next?
Yeah. And I think it was like, for me, I've traveled the world since I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
Never had any sort of routine or normality in my life. So it was definitely something that I was looking forward to, like being with the family, have a normal life, create totally new routines. And it was something that, like, I was looking forward to. So dove straight into Mizu and
into Mizu. And so what's really interesting is that, for all of us now in COVID times, we've gone from working in the office to working at home. So the environment's changed. But I can't even imagine what it must have been like for you going from the mountains to an office.
Yeah, I mean, I was mentally and physically, I was ready. Like I pushed myself for so long that, like, when I made a decision to retire, like it was such a huge relief.
Right.
It was like I don't need to. And that's when I realized how much mental stress he had on me. Like you constantly, like, that's weighing on you, like, because you're thinking, it's like, how can I keep doing this? And once you let go of that, it's like, it was a massive release. But yeah, then going into Mizu, and that's it was really fascinating to learn all the logistics of running company. I've hired partner with the CEO like 5 years prior, so like working closely with him, where you're learning about accounting, manufacturing, the supply chain, the direct consumer, and all those little things. It's like, it was really fascinating to learn of that for 2 years, which eventually teed off what I'm doing now as a commercial photography. But I think now what I do is I've learned a lot. What I learned from being Mizu, it actually helps me a lot in photography, because I'm working in the commercial world for these brands. So not only that I create these images, but knowing what goes behind the scenes about the campaigns and like how they're being used and what's the purpose, like how do you try to convert this content. So like all those were building blocks where I'm at today. So
building blocks is a really good way of looking at it, isn't it? It's like nothing's wasted in your career. And it's interesting because I know you've always had a love of photography. However, moving into the photography world, you must have been relatively unknown when you started off. How do you go from that to now working with some of the really well-known brands?
Yeah, so I've done photography since I was about 15. So like the camera aspect of it wasn't really like, that came pretty naturally. And then being at Mizu, where I started creating a lot of the content for our social and website, and learning how, like, first of all, how that content can convert into sales. And then I was sort of like that transition to doing some little side hustles while I was in Mizu. So I started doing photo shoots. I did some for a few brands, and then that sort of like sparked the interest, like, okay, hey, like I really enjoy this. This makes me really happy. And then after a few years where I sort of helped Mizu to get the marketing and the initiatives in a certain place where we could hire somebody to run that, I decided that I'm going to dive into this photography world. And yes, it was challenging, because like, even though like you may have confidence to your photography, but you need to be relevant in that space. So like it took a while, I would say, like about like 2 years to like really kind of build my portfolio and my work and kind of build your niche, I guess. Yeah. So like now it's great. Like I have consistent clients and the awesome brands that I work with. It's in a space that I love. It works really well, but it's I mean, there was times where you think it's like, is this something like, is like viable? Is this gonna work? Is there,
you had your doubts, you had your moments of like,
and then a couple things come about, and then, but it is like, you have to just stay on track, stay focused. And
because there's a lot of people out there right now that are, losing jobs, having to change careers, and you've obviously spent a long time reinventing yourself many times and going through patches where you're not even sure, it's new to you. So what advice would you give those people?
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it's really hard, because you can't just like, hey, I'm just going to do photography for a living. It's like, you can't go to Europe without making any money. So like, I think having those like side hustles or passions, or educating yourself on the side, whether it's like graphic design or Photoshop, or having a company or brand on the side, it's just like, what makes you happy, what you're interested. And yeah, it may be hard because you have your day job and then you have something else and you have your kids, and it's like, it's not easy, but just sort of like try to have different interests, and even if it doesn't work, I'm sure that's going to bring something to what you're doing currently, or it might make you think differently in certain situations. So it's
so side hustles are your top tip.
Yeah, and it's just like always try to learn and move forward, I guess. It's
What's your quote that you say? If you're not moving forward,
it's game over.
It's game over. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, like in snowboarding, if there was times that I wasn't like kind of pushing myself, it would be game over. And it's same thing in the photography now. Like it's going really well, but I already know it's like, okay, like where do I need to stretch myself next? Because if I just keep going this, A, I'm going to get bored of it.
Yeah.
B, there's somebody else is going to come and swoop that.
Yeah.
So how do I keep that fresh and different? And, so.
One step ahead, always one step ahead,
Yeah.
thinking ahead and shaking it up a bit. Yeah. So you see, for our viewers that are listening, who are maybe changing career or looking to reconnect to their purpose, what would your top 3 tips be for them?
I think it's like we talked about, the side hustle, having those interests outside of what you're doing. And then even the space we were in, like educate yourself, push yourself, find different ways to like push that what you're doing. I think it's really important. And it gives you, might open up opportunities that you never knew that were there. I think that's at least for me is important. And then having goals. I always set myself short-term goals and long-term goals. I think those are really important because you've sort of manifest those goals and you think about those goals. And I think that's really important. And then the last thing that for me, it's my personal time. That's
Right.
also very important. For me, it's outdoors and cycling specifically, because it allows me to have that space to kind of wander around and like work things out in my head. And also I need that physical challenge. It kind of resets everything.
Yeah.
So having those is really important. And once like I'm fit, I'm mentally there, everything else makes so much more sense.
It all comes together. Yeah. Oh, you see, it's been so amazing to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us. I know
Thank
that
you.
I've taken a lot from it, definitely, and I'm sure people listening will have as well. Thank you
Awesome.
so much for joining.
Thank you. Peace.
I'm Yvette Jeal, Executive Coach, and I work with clients across industries and across the world, helping them to reach their true potential in their careers. You can find out more on my website, yvettejeal.co.uk.